How to move to Mexico. With warm weather, great food, and an affordable cost of living, Mexico has much to offer. If you are seriously considering moving there, expect the process to take several months, regardless of which country you currently live in. Americans may find it easier to relocate due to Mexico's close proximity, but with the right preparations, anyone in the world can move there. This article needs an editor's attention, for reasons mentioned on its discussion page. PZ, please edit this article and remove this notice once these issues have been resolved. Notice added on 2016-04-11. Part 1, Familiarizing yourself with the culture. 1. Ask yourself why you want to move to Mexico specifically. Moving to a new country is a big decision, not to be taken lightly. Whether you're moving there for work, love, or simply a change of pace, take time to clarify your reasons for wanting to move, including how the move will help you reach your life goals. You may find it useful to write your thoughts down in a journal. 2. Decide which city region you'd most like to live in. Where you decide to live will be largely based on why you want to move to Mexico. For example, if you're moving there for work or love, you may not have much flexibility in where you live. While the climate across Mexico is relatively warm and temperate, there are variations across regions. Beyond weather, you may want to live in a city with more shops, or perhaps somewhere less urban. The Central Highlands are home to cities featuring cobbled streets, cathedrals, haciendas, and other remnants of the Spanish colonial period. The Pacific Coast is home to the Sierra Madre Occidental mountain range, making for wonderful natural scenery, with a coastline featuring miles of beaches, resort cities, farmland, plantations, palm trees, and more. It can get particularly hot in the summer months here, making winter the busy tourist season. Mexico City and its surrounding area offer a contrast of fertile valley terrain and all the pros and cons of big city life: art, culture, nightlife, overpopulation, over 22 million people, crime and poverty. The Yucatan Peninsula comprises 3 states, Campeche, Yucatan, and Quintana Roo, for a total of roughly 1.65 million inhabitants. It hosts a growing community of American and Canadian immigrants. Cancun, one of the largest cities in the Yucatan, is the most popular tourist destination in Mexico. If you have the time and money, you might find it helpful to travel around Mexico a bit and test out different areas through temporary housing rentals before deciding upon a more permanent residence. 3. Familiarize yourself with Mexico's politics, economy, and history. If you do not already have work lined up, you might research the unemployment rates and average wages of the particularly cities that you are interested in. You'll also want to check out the crime rates and political leanings of your destination cities. A recent report shows that while Mexico's economy has recovered from the 2008 recession, unemployment, gross income disparities, and crime, particularly kidnappings and police corruption, remain major concerns. Violence is at its highest in Mexico's northern border towns. Many expats describe Mexicans as being very friendly, but formal and polite in both dress and behavior. If in doubt about how to behave, ask the locals. 4. Familiarize yourself with the cost of living. This will vary depending on where you live. As is generally the case, rural areas will generally be less expensive than cities. Expect to pay between 3,000 and 8,000 pesos per month for an apartment, depending on location and number of bedrooms. 1,200 pesos per month for internet and basic utilities. 580 pesos per month for a gym membership. 7 pesos for single bus fare into a city center. 336 pesos for a monthly pass. 2 pesos per minute for local calls on a prepaid phone plan. Note that mobile phone plans are more expensive than in the US and Europe. To buy an iPhone 5 on a 1-year contract with Telcel costs 7,639 pesos, and a plan with 420 minutes, 20 text messages, and 3 gigabytes of data will cost you 929 pesos per month. For international calls, you'll likely be better off going digital. You can do free video calls with many programs now, including WhatsApp and Skype, and apps like Skype offer monthly unlimited phone plans based on country as well. You just need an internet connection. 5. Experience creative works by Mexicans. Read works by Mexican writers. Octavio Paz and Carlos Fuentes are two popular Mexican writers. Learn about Mexican artists. Diego Rivera is a popular muralist. Watch Mexican films. IMDb has a detailed list of the 100 best Mexican movies. 6. Learn about Mexican cuisine. Buy a Mexican cookbook or look up a recipe for a popular dish online, for example, chilaquiles, pozole, tacos al pastor, tostadas, or guacamole. 7. Learn Spanish. If you can't afford to take Spanish classes at your local community college or language centers, consider buying book, CD combos. Multimedia learning is much better than simply reading from a book. If that's still too pricey, there are free language learning apps available to you if you have a smartphone or tablet. Duolingo is a popular free app. As part of learning the language, pay attention to body language as well. For example, Mexicans tend to hold gestures such as handshakes longer than Americans or Canadians do. You'll also want to avoid standing with your hands on your hips or in your pockets. Be sensitive to dialectical differences in the language. There will be some differences from the Spanish spoken in Spain versus that which is spoken in Mexico. There will even be some differences between the Spanish spoken in Mexico and that spoken in the outlying areas. 8. Join an online community of expats. As someone living outside of your home country, you will be an expat, short for expatriate. Joining an online community of expats in Mexico will not only help you prepare for your trip, but will continue to help you once you've moved. Through expat forums, you can find the best doctors, dentists, hairdressers, grocery stores, or even just make friends with people who will understand your struggles when you have them. Part 2. Doing the paperwork. 1. Ensure that you have a valid passport. If you don't already have a passport, you'll need to apply for one several months before you plan to leave for Mexico. If you already have a passport, ensure that it will remain valid for your entire stay if possible. To live and work in Mexico, your passport must be valid for a period of 1 year after you apply for the necessary visa. If you're planning to be in Mexico for 3 years and your passport is only valid for 1 more year, you can avoid a lot of hassle by simply renewing it now. Make sure that your passport has at least a few blank pages in it to accommodate stamps and visas. If you do not have any blank pages, check with the appropriate government agency of your country to see whether you must renew your passport, or whether you can have extra pages added to it. 2. Figure out which visa you need. Which visa you get depends on whether you intend to work in Mexico. If you do not intend to work, you can simply buy an FMT, tourist, visa through a Mexican consulate or even from the immigration booth after you've crossed the border. If you're driving, $20 paid by credit card. If you're flying into Mexico, the visa will likely be included in the cost of your flight. An FMT visa is valid for 90 to 180 days, roughly 3-6 months. Many people stay in Mexico for years on the FMT visa, simply renewing it every 6 months. If you intend to work, but do not intend to make Mexico your permanent residence, you'll apply for an FM3, non-immigrant residency, visa. There are 10 types of FM3 visas. To find out which one you require, you'll need to go to the nearest immigration office or consulate. The fees for the visa will also differ, but you can expect to spend up to $500 obtaining one. If you intend to live in Mexico permanently, or at least for the foreseeable future, you'll need to apply for an FM2, permanent resident, visa. It must be renewed every year for 5 years, after which you can apply for citizenship. The cost for this visa will range from $300 to $500. For the FM3 and FM2 visas, be prepared for a lengthy application process in which you may need to make multiple trips to the immigration office, consulate. Also for the FM2 and FM2 visas, you'll need to show proof of a Mexican address and a monthly income of between $1,000 and $2,000, depending on your situation. 3. Ensure that you do not require any transit visas. If you are passing through any other countries on your way to Mexico, you may require a transit visa. A transit visa allows you to pass through a country without staying there. 4. Check your driver's license. As Mexico does not require citizens to hold an international license, you can bring along your license from your home country. After arriving in Mexico, apply for a Mexican driver's license by filling out some paperwork and presenting your visa. Note that if you drive into Mexico, you must leave in the same car that you arrived in, as this is marked down on your visa. 5. Handle your finances, including tax obligations, in your home country. You may wish to consolidate bank accounts into one to keep things more streamlined. You'll also want to look into signing up with an international money transfer company, which can transfer money from your home bank account to a new Mexican one, usually at lower cost than your bank can. Note that you can only bring up to $500 cash into Mexico by air, or $300 cash by land. Along with any cash you bring into Mexico, you'll likely find it useful to bring at least one international credit card with you. 6. Get copies of all medical records and prescriptions for yourself and all your family members. Ensure all vaccinations are up to date prior to the move. Vaccinations relevant to Mexico include hepatitis A, hepatitis B, typhoid, and rabies. 7. Book your temporary accommodations. This allows you to have a place to stay once you arrive in Mexico and gives you additional time to search for more permanent housing and job arrangement. 8. Make travel arrangements for your arrival in Mexico. Unless you are driving a car into Mexico, this will likely be a flight. 9. Purchase auto insurance. If you will be driving in Mexico, be sure to buy auto insurance. It isn't necessary, but the consequences of getting into an accident can be serious. You can purchase auto insurance once you are in Mexico. There is no need to buy it beforehand. 10. Get a CURP card. Once you're in Mexico, you'll want to get a CURP, Clave Unice de Registro de Población, card. A CURP card is an ID card with your name, date of birth, place of birth, sex, etc. on it, much like a driver's license. You'll need your passport, visa, and proof of address to get it. You can apply for it at your local municipal branch once you're in Mexico. You will need this card before signing up for healthcare in Mexico. 11. Purchase health insurance. The relatively low cost of healthcare in Mexico makes it possible to self-insure, but if you are on a budget you may find it less stressful to purchase healthcare. The popular public healthcare plan is through IMSS, the Mexican Social Security Institute. If you work in Mexico, you have most likely been enrolled in it through your company, which will take the cost from your paycheck. Depending on your age, the IMSS plan costs up to $350 per year. Many expats say that the IMSS healthcare is fine for aches and pains, but not as effective for more serious conditions. The quality of the care you receive will also depend on specific hospitals and offices. It's worth looking at online reviews before going in, if possible. You can purchase private health care through a number of companies. Just make sure that the policy is underwritten by an insurance company. Some private doctors and hospitals may accept the health insurance you have back home. Just be sure to check beforehand. To give you a sense of private health care costs, if you were to pay for them out of pocket, private doctor's office visits can cost between 150 and 300 pesos, with specialist visits ranging from 500 to 600 pesos. Lab tests are up to 2,000 pesos. Part 3, Dealing with your belongings. 1. Think about what you want to do while living in Mexico. This will help you decide what to keep and what to throw away while packing. You will also want to think about other factors such as the weather and where you'll be living. For example, if you know that you'll be moving around a lot, or that you'll live in small spaces, you might want to consider digitizing your CDs, DVDs, and Blu-rays so that you're not lugging those around with you. An e-reader is a space-friendly alternative to books. Once you've figured out what you want to bring with you, decide whether you wish to sell, store, or donate the rest. Note that storage fees can add up, so if there's something you simply can't get rid of, it might be worth shipping it to Mexico. If you choose to ship some of your items, look for quotes from shipping companies at home and in Mexico to get the best price. Be sure to look at reviews for each company, too, before deciding on one. 2. Be aware of what you can take into Mexico. Things like art and furniture can be brought into Mexico duty-free as long as they were bought at least 6 months before entry, but you cannot bring in live predator fish, dead fish of any kind, and certain drugs, including medical marijuana. FM3 visa holders have the one-time option to import $5,000 worth of personal household items into Mexico duty-free for a $100 fee. If you decide to take advantage of this, you'll need to ensure that you clearly mark each box and provide the Mexican consulate with a list of everything you are shipping, including serial numbers of electronics. Unless you're from America, if you're planning to bring electrical appliances, the electrical voltage requirements may not work for most of the larger appliances. Lower voltage items, such as MP3 players, will typically adjust. If you are coming from Europe, it is best to sell them and purchase ones once you arrive. This can save you on moving costs. 3. Ensure that your pets have the appropriate documentation. If you have cats or dogs, they will need health checks and signed certificates of their health by a veterinary professional, dated within 5 days of crossing the border. The certificate will also need to show that your pets have received their rabies vaccinations. Your local Mexican consulate will be able to inform you further. Birds are more difficult to travel with as they require both paperwork and lengthy quarantine periods that can cost a minimum of $600. If you have any other types of animals that you hope to bring with you, consult embassy, government sites for specific details. Part 4, Settling into your new home. 1. Set up your new home. Try to make your new home as comfortable as possible. If you're on a budget, be smart about what you choose to spend money on. Don't skimp on things that affect your health, such as a good mattress and pillow, for example. 2. Explore your new surroundings. If possible, don't jump into work right away. Take a few weeks to get out, wander around your neighborhood, and explore your new home. Find your new favorite cafe or restaurant. Go on trips around the country. Really get to know it. 3. Familiarize yourself with local amenities. Figure out the locations of your local grocery stores, doctors, pharmacies, vets, if you have pets, transit, etc. 4. Socialize. It can be isolating living in a new place, especially if it's just you and not any other friends or loved ones. Joining a group activity, book club, recreational sports team, community center classes, will help you make friends and feel less lonely. Be proactive and do this soon after you've arrived, rather than waiting until you feel sad. 5. Continue to immerse yourself in the language and culture. Take language classes, go to cultural events. Keep growing and learning. Take advantage of this move. 6. Keep in touch with your friends and family back home. Being apart doesn't mean having to lose touch. With social media and programs like Skype, it's easy and cheap to keep in touch with loved ones. Starting out in a new place is exciting, but it can also be very difficult. Having a good support network will keep you going when you're struggling. Tips. If you do not want to handle all the required planning to move to Mexico, you can hire a relocation consultant. Have a contingency fund that will cover you for at least your first few months in Mexico. You never know what could come up, so be prepared. Warnings. The saying, "No matter where you go, there you are," sounds silly, but it's true. If you are unhappy with yourself, you will likely find that the unhappiness will follow you no matter where you go. Travel can work wonders for depression, but you need to actively seek to learn and grow from your experiences, otherwise you'll just wind up back where you started, no matter what country you're in. When considering travel health insurance, read the fine print. You may find that you're already covered through your credit card provider. When purchasing health insurance, pay extra close attention to claim instructions and exclusions. Sometimes it's possible to pay a little extra for more coverage.